So good afternoon all. I am Manjusha Marar, Cybersecurity Associate, ACPL System Private Limited. I am a Cyber Shiksha alumni from the pass out year of 2019. Cyber Shiksha is a joint skill initiative program for young women by DSCI and Microsoft. So I'm delighted welcome to all in the session of AISS 2023. The session security operations, like how we can choose it, like SIEM, SOAR or XDR, MSS, MDR, XMDR. So I am pleasure to welcome you all the panelists on the dais. Mr. Bittal Bharatraj, CISO, GMR Group. Okay, he is not able to join for our session. Unfortunately, there is some emergency. So we are thankful to the Lieutenant Colonel Nishant Singh, Business Head, Gramax Cybersec GMR Group, and EX CISO MA to moderate the session on a very short notice. So thank you, sir, and welcoming you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Ramsundar, President Global Sales and Field Operation. Welcome, sir. Next, we have Ms. Yashaswini, Director Sales Engineering, Sentinel-1. Oh, sorry. So sorry. Okay, Mr. Yashaswini, Director Sales Engineering, Sentinel-1. Okay. Next, we have Mr. Rahul, CISO, EPFO. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, Rahul.
So I am requesting the moderator to lead the session. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Quite a short notice, but as we say in cyber, we are ready 24/7. So I've been able to moderate this session. Now I'll do justice to it because we have a wonderful panel with us. And all the panelists here have got their very eminent career in cyber and immense experience. And so I'm sure the tips and the guidelines that they deliver over here will definitely go a long way in helping us shaping our cybersecurity thought process. SecOps, a very, very essential, important buzzword today, and definitely one of the essence of any enterprise, which it is needless to say why SecOps. The question is really, there's no need to ask such a question because we all know SecOps is required. But why we're here today is to develop on the ideology, the thought process, the CISO's mind, which helps him in taking a decision to choose the right kind of technology or tool to ensure that the SecOps is in place, the efficiency of the SecOps is close to the optimal. We never say 100% in cyber, so it is within the risk appetite of the enterprise, and it delivers all the requirements of cybersecurity without hampering the business continuity and business efficiency. So on that pretext today, we have been hearing a lot of jargons like XDR, SOAR, SIEM, MDR. So definitely you'll all get to know some nuances of these technologies and platforms with our experts today. So without doing further on this, I'll invite now, I'll open the session with Rahul, and would like to know, Rahul, since you come from government sector and you've been handling SecOps, so it will be really good idea to give a perspective to the session, to all the audience about what SecOps and what exactly are the nuances, what are the components that in your experience you feel important for SecOps. Rahul.
Thank you, Nishant. So when we talk about security operations, the first thing which comes into my mind is like we all have witnessed various games of football. The goalkeeper in a match may save 4 goals. But if 1 goal is scored against the goalkeeper and the team loses 1-0, then he is held responsible. So in this type of environment where the CISOs work, trying to protect their businesses and IT assets associated with it, it is very important to understand if CISO is responsible for such type of task, then he's up against what? So when we talk about SecOps, we all understand that it is a business function. Operations doesn't work in isolation when we talk about the security as such. And that is not only the operational security we talk about, it is also the threat and vulnerability management. Then comes the ways in the manner in different scenarios, how we manage these security operations. That can be totally in-house, on-prem, it can be cloud, it can be a hybrid model. But the underlying fact to all these three is the organization has to decide on the budget. They should know their security needs. And thirdly, what are the available resources? So that is the deciding factor. As we are all aware, the evolving nature of hybrid workforce, the remote access and all those things. So the cyber threat landscape is expanding day by day. And in this expansion, what ultimately happens, the organizations, they lead into or they are more drawn into doing additional projects just to buying new tools and tools and tools. But what the security leaders and the risk managers needs to understand that their all efforts should be centralized on the business risk. Identify the business risk and just do not try to do the same old things again and again, trying to do it in a better way. That is not going to help. Effort should totally be on the risk base and have an informed decision before you get into or want to implement any tool within your setup.
Very, very valid point, Rahul. And I think if I can, I've got it correctly and I put it in a nutshell. What you mean is that firstly, it has to be an integrated approach. It should not be a siloed approach. The typical primitive approach wherein business talks a different language, IT operations talks a different language, security talks a different language. Now all have to talk a common language, and an integrated approach is something which, because business is always the target. So business processes, if they are not understood well by the security operations or the IT operations, it's always hampering the growth. And business it's existing because for the growth. So I don't think there'll be a siloed approach which will work. So definitely, Rahul, that's a very important aspect. It should also help in decision making, definitely, because decision making helps the leaders. If they do not have the complete visibility of the cyber risk to what is the business risk and close mapping of cyber risks and business risks, I think decision making will be hampered. So with that, now I come to Yash. Since Yash has got a very vast experience in deploying and delivering cybersecurity solutions for different enterprises. So I'd like to pick your mind on how exactly, what is that premise, what is those nuances or the parameters which a CISO has to consider while choosing the right platform for the SecOps?
Yeah, so when you talk about SecOps, it's a pretty vast field, right? So when you talk about the entire landscape, what is that I'm going to start securing? Where am I starting? The first evaluation itself is a major task. After that, understanding what is my appetite, how big is my team, and what are my important priorities. Right from that, it actually starts. Do I have security controls from different layers perspective? And from that perspective, should I start implementing all of that? Should I own those tasks? Should I start giving it to someone else who is an expert, right? And most important is, the basic thing is getting them trained on saying that what are my business objectives? Why am I doing this? And if these are security measures and these are different security layers, just as an example, talk about vulnerability management. I'm going to start implementing vulnerability management. What is my current process? How am I going to start implementing it? If I'm going to take EDR as an example, what is my existing process, where I want to go, and if I'm going to implement that, what is my current threat landscape? Understanding that and taking a lead further is the most basic step.
Great. Thank you, Yash. That's wonderful insights. So coming to Ram Sundar, he comes from a background, vast experience in deploying various security controls and delivering SecOps to big enterprises, small enterprises. So Ram Sundar, what's your thought on SecOps and choosing the technology? What do you say in your experience?
Okay, thanks. SecOps is perhaps the heart of every organization today. Today, let's accept it. like it or leave it, businesses are not operating in silos. We are working in a borderless economy. The CISO's role becomes all the more challenging. The budgets are limited. The CISO has to ensure that he is continuously protecting his organization, spending the right dollar at the right place at the right time. That's very, very critical because the budgets are limited. The organizations are moving into a borderless framework. So that means the organizations are working in a heterogeneous environment of resources. So you have multiple devices getting into your network. So it's all about three very important things that I believe is continuity. So as a CISO or a SecOps head, not really the CISO because he would be working with the CISO, the SecOps has to have continuous visibility and continuous ability to take remediative action at the right time. So choosing the right tools, which gives you not only continuous visibility across the length and breadth of the enterprise. That's super, super critical. You cannot have missing out. Point number 2 is you are doing this on a continuous basis. It is not a snapshot of a point in time. You've got to get this available, that intelligence available as a layman, and he needs to know where to act. I'd like to just give a very simple advice. Organizations today have a lot of IoT devices coming in, right? I'm sure you would agree with it. IoT is now becoming the purview of the CISO, right? But everybody knows that you cannot have an agent, you cannot have too much of traffic flowing in an IoT device. But a simple thing, if there is a traffic flowing from a particular IoT, maybe a simple thing like a printer, maybe your electrical control system, traffic flowing from that to any particular endpoint, that should immediately raise an alarm to your SecOps head, who can immediately, without even asking anybody, he should have the power to remediate. And how does he do that? With integration with your SIEM and SOAR to immediately take action. So continuity becomes very, very important. And you cannot miss. It's about getting in-depth. You need to have in-depth visibility. You can't have a superficial layer. The hacker is smarter than us, and the CISO's role is becoming. So it's very, very important. Whatever you deploy, you've got to deploy the tools in absolutely great depth, having the great depth. So I would actually, the session is actually just talking of XDR, it's talking of SIEM, SOAR, and MSS. But are these the only tools that are required to manage a SecOps?
Yeah, so we will be discussing about the tools in a bit of a moment. So right now, Ramsundar, you have touched upon very essential aspects, and I think you've touched the common pain point for all the CISOs, the budget part. So I think I would like to pick your mind on when we talk about the budget, it's always a constraint, and the business requirement and the security requirements are generally contrasting. And it's very difficult to navigate through in the enterprise for a CISO to what he visualizes and what he is able to bring on ground, because everything eventually boils down to the budget, and it's something which we are always struggling with, all the enterprises, and the view that the business leaders have, the security leaders have are different. So what do you think, Ramsundar, how to deal with this budget issue and bringing the right kind of perspective on the table, which is driven by the business leaders and see the light of the day?
Absolutely. So actually one should realize that CISO's function is very, very important. And Rahul touched upon, it's an enabler. So it requires the CISO to work with the business leader to understand where the business wants to grow, the trajectory of growth. The CIO decides on technologies that need to be brought in. But the CISO has to really look forward and say, these are the risks that are going to be coming in. With these technologies being adopted, this is the risk to the enterprise. And he has to then go back and present to the board in a logical way. How do we mitigate these risks? So it's about choosing the best of breed. And it's a framework that you've got to adopt. So when you go back with the board, that you've got to get the best of breed. You cannot have shortcuts. To me, we've been talking of XDR, but to me, XDR is a framework. It is not one tool XDR, because you need to get endpoint, which is where I'm saying you've got millions of devices coming into your enterprise. And then the other side, you've got network. And you've got network, you've got your north-south traffic, and more importantly, east-west traffic. You've got a lot of dozens of technologies available in the cybersecurity domain that can give you a north-south. But there are very few technologies that can actually continuously give you information and intelligence about your east-west. So picking upon technologies that can give you all these aspects is very critical. So to me, XDR becomes it's a platform or a methodology like Zero Trust. It is not a product. You've got to pick up on the best of breed endpoint. You've got to pick up on the best of breed network detection and response. You've got to pick up on the best of breed threat intel platform, the best of breed SIEM. These are some, and maybe even pick upon a good PAM or a PAM solution, because all of them have to work together in a bidirectional integration so that there is a continuous information sharing with the SIEM, SOAR, so that a remediation action can be taken. I gave you an example earlier. And the reason I'm saying, and more importantly, talking about the budget. See, if we start, most of our budgets are consumed in trying to be reactive towards this thing. There's a breach happened, let me try and address it. So if I have the intelligence, I know where my dollar is going, where is my risk, which is the attack coming into the organization, am I vulnerable to this? First and foremost, there are a lot of these vulnerabilities are built to exploit some vulnerability in your enterprise. Do I have that? If I don't get that intelligence, we will be
a realistic risk assessment. That's what you mean.
And on a continuous basis.
Absolutely, it cannot be one size fits all. It has to be specific to the enterprise.
And that is what a tool should give you.
Absolutely.
A tool should give me this. I don't have that. It should automatically throw out. I don't have this infrastructure environment, so I'm not I'm risk averse.
Yeah,
so I don't have to
absolutely.
spend my dollar, and I don't have to use my people to try and.
So in a nutshell, budget is something which, if you want this to be actually delivered in the form of a technology or the solution, so it has to be put in the right perspective, in the language which is understandable by the board, and you have to have a CISO. CISO has to say in the boardroom. I think that's
one. One is also picking on the right technology, which can actually support the organization for years to come.
True.
In terms of technology development, because security is a fast-changing domain.
The cost-benefit analysis is something which is very important for a business leader.
It's just not the cost-benefit, but it's also ensuring that you partner with the right company who's there working with your organization for years, because security is a fast-changing domain.
Absolutely. You need the support from the technology.
So you need a right
audience.
product
Absolutely.
company, and more importantly, you need a right service provider at the ground
True.
level
To understand your requirement and design a solution.
Deploy the technology,
Absolutely.
help you get the best out of the deployments that you have done.
Great insight, Ram. Thank you. I'll now come back to Rahul. Rahul, you would have heard and rather experienced what I've seen today in enterprise. A lot of enterprises are facing this issue that the business demands more openness and agility in the systems, in the operations. Now, those operations are primarily they are riding over the ICT infrastructure. But your security requirements say that the more we open, more we are vulnerable to the threats. So to deal with such a contrasting requirement and then choosing the right kind of a solution which is meeting this requirement of business leaders, which you certainly cannot rule out, the more openness, like they want even people working from anywhere. That's another requirement, the need of the day. Then they also want the user experience should not be hampered with too many security checks and balances. And they also want to outsource a lot of things. So the third party risk also comes into play. How do you, what do you think, how to handle such a challenge?
So I'll just want to present a different perspective from the user point of view. I'll just elaborate further, which has been spoken by the previous speaker. solely from the user perspective in case we want to identify what type of security control I want to prevent my business risk. I am looking as a CISO oblique a person in the security team, I am looking for intelligence on my adversaries, in a sense, to identify my own standings and to identify my readiness to respond to any eventuality. First, a tool can provide me this, I am happy to put it in my system. Second most important thing I am looking for is to look for that disruptive attributes against which I do not have a value to match. That is, I am not looking of holistic signature-based analysis. Another thing which I want, that is to elaborate further, I am looking for those outliers. I am looking for new identification against objectionable behavior, presuming that rest all my security systems have failed. This is the day and this is the generation which we are into. We are not talking about good old school days, firewalls and all those things. So a tool should be able to provide me that. And I am totally not supported of fighting multiple battles with a single gun. What I want, I should be weaponized, the security team should be weaponized to fight its own battle considering the respective security, considering the business need. When I speak about battle, I'm talking about the various layers of maybe the application layer, maybe the endpoint layer, the network layer. So I should have those precise tools, provided these tools should be able to communicate with each other and correlate and give a holistic picture to the commander of this war, which is the security team lead. That is what I'm looking at. And I'll just give you further. This also provides this commander oblique the CISO with the flexibility to isolate one of the battle. Just think of a scenario. There are 10, 12 of a system, suddenly they are facing a session timeout, oblique brute phase sort of thing. And suddenly next moment you find that all of these are communicating with the public IP outside. So I want that intel from my endpoint control. I want my network analytics in place. I also want to see the firewall, what is happening. And this complete picture should be presented automated to the CISO to take the informed decision. That is what I am looking at in next-gen solution. If this thing can be provided by XDR, I'll take XDR. If it meets a combination of NIDR and an EDR, I'll take that. If it also incorporates a perimeter firewall, I'll take that. But in case my business need does not demand me to have an XDR, and I'm happy to meet my needs by a perimeter firewall, I'll limit myself to that. That is what I'm coming to it. We do not follow the rat race in this, but be aware of our business risk and respond to them in that way. In the end, as a CISO and security lead, I am looking at the visibility to respond in the minimum of time, have minimum downtime, be able to do forensic analysis, and prevent and safeguard my IT assets. That's it.
Definitely, that's a wonderful insight. In fact, when we talk about this, bringing the openness and agility in the system, enhancing the user experience, definitely we cannot left all our doors open. If you have opened some door, then you have to put a kind of a, in the physical parlance when we talk, we put a CCTV camera. So that means monitoring has to be robust and 24/7, and the detection has to be the fastest if you are keeping a few openness in the system. So with that, I'll come to Yash, because Yash comes from a background where he has dealt and designed solutions for a lot of enterprises. So what we have just discussed about the openness, fast response, fast detection, monitoring. So what exactly do you think should CISO be thinking upon or working on the parameters when he has to choose SIEM, SOAR, XDR? So throw some light and enlighten us on these different platforms. More of a jargon to a lot of us, and that's very confusing often
Absolutely.
for the business to choose.
So yes, of course, we are dealing with a lot of jargons. To actually add to Mr. Ram's point and to Mr. Rahul's point, right? So when we are talking about, when we talk to CISOs, the most important thing comes into mind is when talking about cost reduction is, can this tool replace any other technologies in my network, right? Or in my security portfolio? And what is the advantage that it is actually going to get me? And of course, with the XDR coming into picture, right? As Mr. Ram exactly mentioned, the first thing is, how do you cover your endpoints? How safe are your endpoints? And as Mr. Rahul said that, I don't mind choosing one solution or limiting myself to one solution if it is able to provide me more, right? When I say more, what is that I need, right? What is my organization requires right now, right? So example, as rightly said, I don't want to limit myself choosing a traditional solution which is signature-based. It's not going to help me with the latest threats, because if you look at latest threats, I can mutate a payload in a couple of seconds. These are beautiful, right? So the way it actually acts in a network, of course, it's very destructive. But if you look at these payloads, these are very, very, very unique, right? And the way it actually starts propagating within the network is also interesting. In that manner, what is that I'll have to start depending on? So should I start looking at behavioral-based detection? Yes. And should I also look at things where it covers all of the MITRE techniques and understand and give a CISO saying that, okay, fine, these are the ways I have actually detected particular threats, and how do I start reducing my threat landscape? And the most important along with that is visibility. How do I start understanding what is within my network? Where should I start protecting, right? So endpoints and servers and all of that are very, very critical. And out of all of that, as Mr. Ram said, what are the ICT devices that are there, right? Do I have a visibility into it? What are my rogue devices that are there? Coming back, to the question of having multiple jargons, if you look at EDR, XDR, MXDR, MDR, MSSP, of course, it's a provider. So the most important thing is for all of these layers to start building, as Mrs. Ram said, it is actually a platform and a portfolio of different types of techniques and products that you actually build on, right? So it is about saying that at the base level, am I strong? The basics, as we all know, our academics is our basics. The most important basic are, where if there is an attack, what is the attacker interested in? My data. Where is the data residing, right? What are the measures that I have in place? If I just have a firewall, is that good enough? No. If I just have a traditional antivirus, is it good enough? No. In terms of an attack, right, it's not about will I get attacked? When will I get attacked? In these cases, when I'm getting attacked, do I have data in order to understand how it actually came in? Right? If I look at from an SIEM perspective, many of the organizations use SIEM just as a log collector. Am I using that to start correlating threats? Am I using that to start sending alerts where it is not causing a lot of fatigue to my SOC? If I'm having an XDR in place, what are my existing devices that I already have, security controls I already have? Can I integrate with it? And the most important, can I automate it? Right? If I am able to automate my responses and understand from a single pane of glass saying that this is exactly what is happening within my network, and if I have a standardized, normalized way to start searching for anything and everything within my network, that's the most important thing. Right? That simplifies a lot of process. And of course, from a cost perspective, it does reduce your manpower time taken, manpower, of course, and it also simplifies a lot of things for you. Right? That's my answer.
Great. So today when we talk about the typical SIEM kind of an environment, we often are more dependent on manual efforts by the team. So what do you think when we adopt SOAR? It gives you automated response capability.
Yeah.
So do you think it has an efficiency enhancement, or does it mean that you can reduce your resources in terms of manpower?
Yeah. So when you talk about SOAR, the most important thing comes into mind is incident, right? When I talk about incident, there are two terminologies that come to mind. MTTR, mean time to respond, and mean time to detect. Even mean time to respond, before that, mean time to detect. How much time does it take for me to understand whether there is actually a real attack going into my network, right, which is happening? Okay. And how do I start understanding it? And then what is my MTTR? If I need to submit that, example, if I'm the CISO, if I need to submit my budget, I'll have to understand saying that, okay, fine, these were my parameters last year, and this is the time taken for me to understand these are the type of attacks that actually happened in my network. Yes, first of all, you have to acknowledge that there were attacks, right? then you have to understand saying that, okay, fine, how do I start responding to it? And from a SOAR perspective, yes, when should I start implementing all of these parameters in place? When do I start implementing all these techniques in place? And even before that, when I'm talking about incidents, do I have the most basic common thing in my network where I start understanding all of these threats from a AI ML perspective and not depend on a traditional approach?
Great insights. With that, I come to Ram. And Ram, you have touched upon a very essential aspect of having a visibility on a wider canvas and not leave any such data point or any such control which is not mapped to your control system. So when we choose such a technology or a platform like SOAR or XDR, what do you think should be the right approach? Because see, it's an integrated and disparate technologies. You have OT on one side, you have local IT infra on one side, and then you also have cloud infra, and there'll be few mobile microservices as well. So how do you think we get a common common view, which suffices firstly for the CISO to draw inference about the security posture, and it also acts as a decision-making data or the statistics for the business leaders?
Truly said. Today, technologies and solutions are available, which can really look at every nook and corner of the organization. Most important is picking a technology that can eradicate blind spots. So that can give you complete visibility. The second point is, there are technologies that can cover your entire infrastructure. Now, whether it's IoT, whether it is OT, not OT, but IoT or your simple traditional endpoints, or even your cloud infrastructure. And the reality is, I'm sure both of you all will agree, being practitioners, that most enterprises will have a hybrid environment. You will have on-prem, plus you will have assets on the cloud. So it's important to pick up on technologies that do that. And therefore, I said, let's not get, it's very important because there will be technologies who are best of breed in their class. So looking at just one platform, looking at it as an approach is good, as a framework is good, and then picking upon the technologies that can help you meet that framework. I spoke Zero Trust, XDR, they're all frameworks. And there are various technologies that are available that can really come in and fit into those gaps. It's identifying what I require, as Rahul had said, ensuring that I don't miss upon the blind spots, and don't look at, my advice is, don't look at any technology for today. Look at it for what is the business going to grow? How is the business going to grow? Look at, map it up to your business. That is where your budget question becomes very easy when the CISO goes to the board, because you're talking business. And you become a business enabler rather than this thing.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'll quickly, that brings me to a very important aspect about today. The concept is that if you have enough budget and time and space, have everything in-house, deploy a SOC or a SecOps, or there's also a concept of having a hybrid. You offload some of the services with service provider and have these critical services with you, or it's for the MSME, you have a total offboarding it to some third party. So Rahul, I would like to pick your mind on what do you think of these different kind of models of service SecOps to whether have it in-house or the MSSP kind of a concept? What's your view on that?
So, Nishant, it's totally depends on the individual business and the associated risk. In case I'm an organization who is handling a very critical sort of data, which PIA is involved, and other important user data are involved. So I have to answer the question, what if this data gets into public? If I'm able to answer that data, and if it tells me that I cannot afford that, so I'll be totally going for an in-house on-prem security operations without putting anything on cloud. I cannot take that risk. In case there are certain non-sensitive data, non-critical operations, non-critical services which I have to provide to the users, which I can afford to put it on cloud because it is not handling that sort of data, then I'll go for a hybrid sort of model. So critical things are with me. Non-critical setup is there on the cloud and managed by somebody else. So these are the certain driving factors. So again, I'll come back to it all depends on what type of risk to the business one can take. Having an approval of the organization, top management, make them understand, get the budget approved, and try to deploy these scenarios, and keep on evolving. See, what is in today may not be in tomorrow. As far as security is concerned, this landscape is totally evolving. So you have to adapt to it and adopt new technologies, but keep your business risk in mind. And that is what I'll tell you, and then concentrate on the deployment infrastructure.
Great input. Yes, please, Ram.
So I think when we're talking about SecOps, the three critical things about your job. People, process, and technologies, in summary. They're three very important things. So when you're talking about people, it's not just the people in the enterprise, that is your side. It is also the people from the OEM that you are selecting. It's also the partner, people from the partner. It's actually three different organizations at least, or in case you select an MSSP or whatever, as Rahul had said. And that will be, it would depend on the, if it is a very critical asset, you might want to do it on-prem itself with your people. If it is not so risky, not so important, you might do it on cloud. So look at, it's actually all of them are stakeholders. The moment you forget that you are not the only stakeholder. It is we as OEMs are equal stakeholders to your success. The partner that comes in to do this service provisioning for you is an equal stakeholder. All of us are equally in it together. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So then the technology piece falls into place because you've got to get the best of breed, looking at your business and looking at the future.
Great, Ram.
And then the right processes to mitigate all these things.
Thank you. Wonderful input. With that, I move to Yash. I'll quickly take your inputs on MSSP, which is a growing concept today in the enterprise world. And in fact, not only the small enterprises, but sometimes medium enterprises are also going in for such managed services.
Yeah. So there are a couple of questions which come to me. Should I go with an MSSP approach or should I go with an MDR approach? Right. So there is always a question saying that if do I have a team? My question is, do you have a team to understand all of the incidents which are actually happening? One is, do you have a robust IT team? Right. So when I talk about IT team, do they have all the practices in place where they can handle everyday tasks across all the technologies that you own? Right? And second is, if you have that, is your team trained, and how many resources you have, and how well are they in these technologies, right? And if you do not have all of that, then naturally you progress towards MSSP.
Great.
Right? So from an MSSP perspective, one, you get your everyday updates for all of your existing solutions, right? Where they manage their policies, where they manage the health of the security systems, right? So we all talk about cybersecurity, but maintaining the health of these solutions, whether they are updated and all of that,
okay,
that comes into play.
Very nice. So in the interest of time, we're running out of time. So quickly to sum it up, so it's a rapid fire tips I would like to have from all of you. So from CISO, Rahul, I would like you to give 3 quick tips as a CISO, what SecOps should be. Quick 3 tips in 3 seconds.
Visibility, the budget, and the resources available.
Great. Ram, quick 3 tips on 3 must-have technologies.
So actually, it's what I summarized it earlier.
Just 3 points, quick 3
people,
technologies must-have.
It's about technologies.
3 must-have technologies for SecOps.
So you definitely require an SIEM and a SOAR. You require endpoint detection and network detection. And I'm not saying an XDR. It's a full-fledged endpoint detection and response and full-fledged network detection and response. And most importantly, all of them have to work together in order to provide, not to forget the firewall.
Great. Important rights. Yash, 3 must-have features in technologies.
Okay. One is identifying all the blind spots, giving a full visibility of what is running in the network. 2 is making sure that it does not depend on the traditional way of detecting any threats, identifying or using AI/ML methods, and not just by the jargon, by truly implementing that. right?
Awesome.
The third one is making sure that not just from a technology perspective, making sure that the process and procedures and the trainings are in place to actually utilize it properly.
Awesome. That's bang on. And for the benefit of all the audience, just to sum it up quickly, as a takeaway, integrated approach in SecOps, mapping business risk to cyber risk, budget, you have to have say. A CISO has to have say in decision-making board in the budget. Then tools that serve you, which meets your business requirement and security requirements, visibility, detection, quick automated response, use of emerging technologies, AI and ML, to enhance the capability in detection and reduce the response time. And if you have any tool which can replace some existing technology, must look into it. And definitely behavioral analysis capability is also essential. With that, we come to the session, end of the session. And wonderful having you, Yash, Ram, and Rahul. Very important essence that you have touched upon. And I hope our audience also liked it too. Thank you, audience. If there are any questions, you can point it to specific panelist. Please go ahead. We can take 3 questions. Yes, please. Can you use the mic, please?
Thank you for, providing the insight. But want to know, in your views, whether we should go with cloud native, all of these technologies, whether cloud native or non-cloud native.
Yes, we'll take on. Yeah.
So when you talk about cloud native or not cloud native, it depends on what sector you belong to. That's one. And second, as per your sector requirements, as per your compliance requirements, can the data go to the cloud? Is there any kind of regulatory requirement saying that at least the data should be in India? So all these things comes into play, right? Cloud native is, when you talk about cloud native, there is a lot of advantages to it. So you can easily scale up, and you can have a lot of flexibility around it.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any question? We can take 2 more questions.
Probably the question to Rahul and Yash. While you procure these technologies, there is a direct cost. And you would obviously keep these technologies for a sustained period of time, right? So there's indirect cost as well. For example, developing new type of detection capabilities, use cases, etc. How do you, when you do your budgeting, how do you account for the total cost? How much weightage do you really give that into your budget? Or are you only looking at a capital cost and a run operation cost? Because there's an engineering function, sustainability, etc. And how do you position that as a solution provider to educate that you're not just buying this license one-off, because you have a responsibility, as Sir said, you are in it for the success, right? So you're not just selling it and going away. How do you educate that it's not just one-time buy, you have additional costs that will come? So how do you manage that? Because that's not I'm assuming an easy conversation with the board.
Both of them to answer?
Yeah, from a board and management perspective, probably Rahul, your perspective.
The question is very valid, and this is not an easy thing to do when you present certain things to the board, that this is the type of security controls you're wanting in your business, but duly highlighting and supporting with the risk involved. Then firstly, your task will be to make them understand, unless until security, the top management, probably your board is aligned with the CISO, things cannot happen on ground. It has to be top down. With said that, the board, if understands the risk they have of the business and what controls you are trying to put in place, give them a comparative analysis. Also, I'll highlight what happens in the government sector. You have to do certain comparisons. You cannot pick and choose the products and all. So you have to be very diligent in your actions, see what others are doing, project them the comparative analysis, then tell them this is our exact business requirement for mitigating this particular risk. Then also put them, in case we are not putting this control in place, then what may be the impact. Once they understand all those things, then also you rightly brought out what is the existing infra, and the engineering efforts will be involved to maybe a rehashing. Suppose there is a vulnerability with respect to your legacy environment. There may be a vulnerability with respect to outdated components, but you cannot just uproot them and put in new. So time is also involved. When you do that engineering analysis, you have to take care of the budget, you have to take care of the time, the resources involved, calculate all those things and present them in a way they understand. You cannot present everything technically. You have to build up a business impact, give them the risk analysis, and then present. And then things happen. It may take some time, but if it is brought out in a proper way, it will happen.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, very quickly. So there's always a pain for the CISOs because one, the most important thing is you may like the technology, you may like what it does, how much effort is actually required and all of that, but most important is the budget. Am I giving enough budget? That's one. And from a technology standpoint, right? One, when you're evaluating a technology, make sure that you understand, you go through a thorough process of understanding what it has, what it does not have, and what is good to have, right? Because when you start evaluating a lot of technologies, everyone will start throwing you, these are the features I have. Please don't start comparing features to features. What is my pain point and how is it solving it, right? That's the most important thing. Second is, before you start deploying, properly have an SOW, have a partner who can actually deploy the solution, or from the vendor or from the partner saying that this is my requirement, get them onboarded before the rollout starts so that it will be successful. As simple as that.
Great. I think we have run out of time and I've been prompted. So thank you so much for also, let's have a huge round of applause for the panelists who gave great inputs.
So now I request Manjusha, alumni of Cyber Siksha program, to hand over memento for the panelist.
Thank you. Group photo, yeah. Again.